Something happened in your person's car last night that changed everything. Wait. Pause for a second. Something quiet, something almost invisible has just shifted. And if you've felt a strange softness in your chest tonight, a kind of stillness you can't quite explain, this might be why. Because somewhere out there, in a place you weren't part of, in a moment you didn't witness, your name was spoken. Not by you, not to you, but about you. And the person it landed on didn't react the way they expected to. They thought they had moved past this. They thought the silence between you had become normal. But tonight, in the back of someone's car, under the low hum of music neither of them was really listening to, something cracked open, quietly, almost gently, the kind of crack that doesn't make a sound, but changes the shape of everything inside. If this message speaks to your heart, comment "I receive this love," like the video, and subscribe for more. Now let me take you into that car. Because you need to feel what they felt. It was late. Later than they meant to stay out. The night had that specific kind of tiredness to it. The kind where the laughter has thinned out. Where everyone's a little quieter than they were 3 hours ago. Where the streetlights blur a little because the eyes are heavy, and the heart is heavier than anyone's admitting. Their person was in the passenger seat. Or maybe the back. It doesn't really matter where they were sitting. What matters is that they weren't driving. They had nothing to focus on, nothing to distract them. Just the window. Just the streets passing by. Just the voices around them. And then someone said your name, not in a big way. Not dramatically. Just casually, the way people mention someone they remember. A small comment. A small observation. Something honest. Something that wasn't meant to wound anyone. The kind of sentence that, on any other night, would have passed through them like air. But tonight it didn't pass through. Tonight it landed. Stay with this, because there's a deeper emotional layer here that most people miss when they hear stories like this. See? The thing about hearing someone else talk about a person you've been quietly avoiding in your own mind is that it bypasses every wall you've built. When you think about someone, you control the thoughts. You decide what to remember and what to push down. But when someone else speaks about them, out loud, in front of you, you don't get to choose. The words just enter, and whatever you've been hiding from rises up to meet them. That's what happened to your person tonight. The third party didn't say anything cruel. That's the part that surprised them most. They almost wished it had been cruel. Because cruelty would have given them somewhere to put their reaction. Anger is easy, defensiveness is easy, but the words weren't cruel. They were honest. Painfully, casually honest. Something like, "She really cared about you, you know, more than you let yourself see." Or maybe it was, "I always thought you two had something different. I don't know why you let that go." Something simple, something true. Something they had been refusing to say to themselves for a long time. And the silence that followed inside them was the loudest silence they'd felt in months. This is where things quietly began to shift. They didn't say anything back. That's the first thing you should know. They didn't defend themselves. They didn't argue. They didn't laugh it off the way they normally would. They just stared at the window, watched the light smear across the glass, took another sip of whatever they were drinking, and then another, because suddenly the drink in their hand felt like the only thing they could hold on to. You see, when truth arrives unexpectedly, the body knows before the mind does. Their chest got tight. Their jaw did that small thing it does when they're trying not to feel something. The conversation moved on around them, the way conversations always do, but they weren't really there anymore. Their body was in the car. Their mind had already left. And where do you think it went? To you. Not in a romantic movie way. Not with violins and rain on the windshield. It was quieter than that, more uncomfortable than that. Their mind went to a moment with you they hadn't thought about in a long time. A small one. Probably one you don't even remember. Maybe it was the way you laughed at something they said once. Maybe it was a text you sent that they read 3 times before responding. Maybe it was the way you looked at them when you thought they weren't paying attention. And the quiet truth that they were paying attention the whole time, even when they pretended not to. What happens next isn't loud, but it changes everything. Because here's what people don't understand about emotional distance. Distance doesn't kill feelings, it hides them. It puts them in a room and locks the door, and tells you the room doesn't exist. And you can live like that for a long time, months, even years. You can convince yourself the room is empty. You can walk past the door every day and not feel a thing. Until one night someone you weren't expecting hands you the key. And the key isn't dramatic. The key is just a sentence, a casual sentence, said in passing, in a car. At 1 in the morning, your person is holding that key now, and they're standing at that door, and they don't know what to do with it. Stay with this, because the next part is the part they're still trying to understand themselves. After the car ride, they didn't go straight to bed. They couldn't. They got home, took off their shoes slowly, the way you do when your body is tired but your mind is wide awake. They sat on the edge of something, a bed, a couch, a kitchen chair, doesn't matter, and just stared at nothing for a while. The kind of staring where you're not actually looking, you're remembering. And the memories didn't come in order. That's the cruel part. Memories never come in order when you're avoiding them. They come in waves, in fragments, in pieces that don't fit until they suddenly do. They thought about something you said months ago. They thought about a song you used to send them. And yes, they remembered the song, even though they convinced themselves they'd forgotten. They thought about a phrase you used, the way you said certain words, the small pet name or inside joke that nobody else in their life would understand. And here's the thing they didn't expect. The memory of you didn't feel small anymore. For a long time they had been shrinking you in their mind, making you smaller, making what you had smaller, telling themselves it wasn't that deep, telling themselves it was just a phase, just a chapter, just one of those things. It's a survival instinct, really. We shrink the things we lose so we don't have to grieve them at full size. But tonight, after that sentence in the car, the shrinking stopped working. You expanded back to your real size in their mind, and it scared them. Because the version of you they'd been carrying around was a manageable, edited, smaller version. The real version, the one that came back tonight, wasn't manageable. The real version made them ask the question they'd been refusing to ask. Did I let go of something I shouldn't have? This is where understanding slowly begins. Now I want you to hear me carefully, because this part matters. The realization that hit them tonight isn't going to look like the movies. They're not going to drive to your house at 3 a.m. They're not going to send a long, dramatic message. That's not how real human shifts work. Real shifts are quieter than that. Real shifts happen in the body first, in the breath, in the chest, in the way someone suddenly can't sleep and doesn't know why, in the way they pour another drink, not because they want it, but because they don't know what else to do with their hands. That's where they are right now. And somewhere in that fog, a thought started forming. Not a clear one, not a clean one, just a feeling that said, something about them still stays with me, and I've been pretending it doesn't. That's the inner sentence, more or less. They might not have said it in those exact words. People rarely do. But the feeling is there, sitting behind their ribs, refusing to leave. If this resonates, let it settle in you. You don't need to do anything with it. Just let it be true. Because here's what's quietly happening on your side of this. You've been holding a kind of patience you didn't even know you were holding. You've been living your life. You've been moving forward. You've been trying not to wait, trying not to hope, trying not to give energy to a situation that wasn't giving anything back. And somewhere along the way, you might have started believing that what you felt wasn't mutual, that maybe you imagined the depth, that maybe you cared more, that maybe you saw something that wasn't really there. I need you to hear this gently. You didn't imagine it. The proof of that came tonight. in a place you'll probably never know about, from a person who didn't even know they were being part of something important. The proof came in the form of silence, their silence. The way they didn't laugh off what was said, the way they didn't change the subject, the way they sat with it. Because people don't sit in silence over things that don't matter to them. They breeze past, they joke, they redirect. Silence is what happens when something is too true to deflect. And tonight, your person was silent. What happens next isn't loud either, but it's the part that's going to keep unfolding for them over the coming days. Whether they want it to or not, because once the truth has been spoken out loud, even by someone else, even casually, it doesn't go back into the box. It just doesn't. They can try to push it down tomorrow. They can wake up, drink coffee, go about their day, pretend the car ride didn't happen. But the sentence is in them now. It's going to come back when they're brushing their teeth, when they're walking somewhere alone, when they hear a song that reminds them of you, when someone else says something that, in any other context, wouldn't mean anything. But tonight, it'll mean everything. This is the part they didn't see coming. They didn't see how much your absence had become a weight they were carrying without naming it. You know that feeling when something has been heavy for a long time, but you've been carrying it for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to put it down. That's what you've been to them, not a heaviness they hated. A heaviness they got used to. A heaviness that, somewhere along the way, became part of how they walked through their days. And tonight, just for a moment, in that car, the weight got named. Someone outside of them put words to something they hadn't put words to. And once you name a thing, it stops being invisible. It starts being something you have to look at. Maybe I let go too quickly. That's the thought that surfaced. Not loudly, quietly, almost shyly, like a thought that wasn't sure it was allowed to exist. Maybe I let go too quickly. Maybe I told myself a story about us that wasn't entirely true. Maybe I made my reasons sound bigger than they actually were so I could justify the distance. Maybe I confused space with closure. Maybe I confused silence with peace. These thoughts are arriving for them now. Not all at once. Not in a tidy order. Just in flickers. Like a candle that won't stay fully lit, but won't fully go out either. Stay with this, because the next layer is important. The third party who said your name in that car. They didn't know what they were doing. They weren't trying to fix anything. They weren't trying to send a message. They were just being honest in a casual moment. But sometimes, that's how the deepest truths arrive. Through people who aren't even trying. Through small comments at the wrong time of night. Through casual honesty that lands differently than it was meant to. You've probably had moments like that yourself, where someone said something offhand, and it stayed with you for weeks. That's the kind of moment your person had tonight. And the strange beauty of it is, they couldn't have arrived at this realization on their own. Not yet. They needed someone outside of the situation to hold up a mirror, because the inside of their own mind had become too familiar. They'd lived inside their own justifications for too long. Sometimes we need an outside voice to say what we've been refusing to say to ourselves. That's what happened tonight. And here's where the slow shift in perspective begins. Because once they got home, once the noise died down, once they were alone with the sentence and the memory and the slowly settling drink in their stomach, they started seeing the situation between you differently. Not all at once, just slightly. Like a photograph that had been slightly out of focus and suddenly clicked into clarity. They started remembering the way you actually were, not the version they'd been editing in their head. The real version. The version that paid attention. The version that remembered small things. The version that showed up emotionally even when it wasn't easy. The version that loved them without making it loud. And in that clarity, a small, uncomfortable feeling started to settle in. Not regret in the dramatic sense. Not the kind of regret that sends people running back. The quieter kind, the kind that just sits with you. The kind that says, I think I misunderstood something important. I think I told myself the wrong story. If you've felt this shift too, you already understand. Now let me say something carefully here. This is not me telling you to wait by your phone. This is not me telling you they're going to text you tomorrow morning with a long apology. They might. They might not. Real human shifts don't follow a schedule. What I am telling you is this. A door inside them, a door they thought was closed, just got cracked open tonight. And whether or not they walk through it immediately is their own journey. But the door is open now. And open doors don't close as easily as they did before. Why does this still feel unfinished? That's another thought that started circling them tonight. Why does this still feel unfinished? They had told themselves it was finished. They had wrapped it up mentally. They had filed it away. But the way that sentence in the car landed proved to them that the file wasn't actually closed. There was still something inside it. Still something breathing. Still something real. This is where the quiet transformation begins. And I want you to understand something. Transformation doesn't mean immediate action. Transformation means a person can no longer comfortably believe what they used to believe. That's the whole shift. They can't go back to thinking it didn't matter. They can't go back to pretending you were just a chapter. The story is bigger now in their own mind than they had let it be. And once a story gets bigger inside someone, it changes how they move through their days. They might not reach out tomorrow. They might. But even if they don't, something in them is already different. The way they think about you has changed. The weight you carry in their mind has changed. The shape of the silence between you has changed. And those changes, even invisible ones, ripple outward over time, quietly, without announcement, without drama. The thought of reaching out to you came to them tonight, by the way. I won't pretend it didn't. It came as a passing thought, the kind you almost don't notice, because it doesn't feel safe to notice. They thought about typing your name into a message. They thought about what they'd even say. They didn't do it. They probably won't do it tonight. They're still too in the middle of the feeling. But the thought happened. And thoughts that happen once tend to come back. Why did hearing her name from someone else hit like that? That's another sentence that surfaced for them. That's the question they're going to keep asking themselves, on and off, for the next few days. And the answer, when it finally settles, will not feel dramatic. The answer will feel obvious, in the way truth always does once you finally let it through. The answer is this. It hit like that because it always mattered. They just told themselves it didn't. Now here's the part I want you to take with you. Because this is for you, not them. You don't have to do anything with this. You don't have to text. You don't have to wait. You don't have to change your day. The shift is happening on their side, in their time, in their way. Your job tonight is just to know that what you felt was real, to know that what you carried wasn't one-sided, to know that even when it looked like nothing was happening, something was always quietly waiting under the surface to be acknowledged. There's a line in Scripture, somewhere in Ecclesiastes, that just says, "There's a time for every purpose under heaven." I'm not going to dress it up. I just want you to sit with it for a second. There's a time when things go quiet, and there's a time when something quietly comes back. Not always loudly, not always immediately, but in its own time, its own way, its own season. This is one of those quiet returns. Not a return that demands anything from you. Not a return that asks you to abandon the peace you've built. Just a return of truth, the truth that you mattered. The truth that you still do. The truth that the silence you've been living in wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because they hadn't yet had the moment that made them see it clearly. Tonight, they had that moment. And whether they act on it tomorrow or next week or next month, the moment has already happened. It can't be unhappened, so if tonight feels strangely still for you, if you've been feeling some kind of soft pull in your chest you can't quite explain, if your mind has been drifting somewhere, it doesn't usually drift. If you've felt a small unspoken something in the air today that you didn't have the words for, now you know. It's not nothing. It's not in your head. Something quietly real is unfolding. Not loud, not flashy. Not the way the movies tell us these things happen. Just quiet, just true. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to hold your breath. You can just keep living, keep breathing, keep being the person you've been becoming. Because the version of you that's been doing the slow inner work, the version that's been choosing peace over panic, the version that's been letting go of the need to control how things turn out, that version is exactly who needed to be on the receiving end of tonight's shift. You didn't have to do anything dramatic to be seen again. You just had to keep being real. And what they're beginning to realize now is something they can't walk away from anymore. Not this time.